Join me as I dive into the world of medieval romances and try to uncover the secrets of forbidden love that have been hidden for centuries. Today, you will delve into the fascinating world of medieval romances, exploring the themes of forbidden love that captivated hearts and inspired legends. You think love is a private affair. In the Middle Ages, it's a public ledger inked in law, kin, and property. Step into a parish where the bell is as much a policeman as a prayer. Behind the rood screen, a whisper travels faster than smoke. In the church porch, a pair of hands meet, and a life is made or unmade by words that can't be unsaid. This series will uncover the secrets of forbidden medieval love. How people met, promised, lied, hid, were found out, punished, and sometimes saved. We're ranging across the long 12th to 15th centuries when Europe's rulebook thickens. The church proclaims marriage a sacrament. Consent is king. I take you said freely, and in the present tense, yet consent sits inside a maze of impediments. Too close in blood. At one point, up to the 7th degree, barred it later, paired to the 4th. Linked by marriage to a cousin's cousin. Affinity bites. A godparent. Spiritual kinship can scupper you, already betrothed. A promise can bind as tightly as a vow. Holy orders, a monastic vow. Someone else's spouse, a difference of faith. Proven impotence, abduction. Age girls under 12, boys under 14. In canon law, each can turn a kiss into a case. Beneath the theology sits a tangle of worldly stakes. A bride brings land coin labor alliances. A groom promises protection status heirs. Lords arrange wards' marriages to cement power. Guilds, police who may wed a master's widow. Towns watch that apprentices don't make households before they can keep them. A noble's bed is a diplomatic table. A peasant's bed is a ledger of hands for the harvest. Love is never just love. In a world where property walks on 2 legs and takes a family name, so what counts as forbidden? Start with adultery, the classic, the literary. A knight kneels to a lady whose ring isn't his. There is clandestine marriage, perfectly valid by consent, but condemned when it dodges families' fees and bans. There are matches across rank, a reeve's daughter and a hired man, a merchant's son and a laundress, a lord and the woman who warms his hall. There's interfaith love across the hard borders of Christendom and its neighbors, fraught, rare and dangerous. There are clerical liaisons, a priest and his niece, we will translate the euphemism, a monk and a living world he meant to leave. There are same-sex attachments whispered in statutes, under the catch-all of sodomy, and glimpsed in penances and poetry, real people behind legal thunder. And there are vowed bodies someone promised to God or to another tested by desire. How did people find each other in a village with no privacy and a city of watchful windows? The calendar helps. Maying at dawn. Fairs where strangers mean opportunity. Pilgrimages that conveniently take 3 extra days. Church festivals where shadows lengthen and ale is brave. They meet at the well, in the glebe, at the fulling mill. A go-between carries a token, a posy ring with a French motto, a ribbon, a scrap from a sleeve. Letters move in code acrostics in a hymn margin, a troubadour's song that names no names and tells everyone everything. Behind lacy, literature sits a practical craft of secrecy. Lovers learn the porch a legal theatre at a church's edge, where hands are joined sponsalia per verba de praesenti, away from the curate's ink. They learn the confessional's shadow mercy in theory, but a priest may be kin to your enemy. They learn timing the safe hour between compline and matins, when streets are quiet and the watch is thinking of stew. They learn the grammar of garden shawthorn for hope, rosemary for remembrance, rue for regret, and make bouquets that speak. The record of all this lives in courts that called themselves moral and were sometimes merely nosy. Consistory and archdeaconry courts summon lovers and neighbours who report with obscene accuracy how many kisses make a scandal. Manorial and borough courts fine men for night-walking, women for brawling, both for defamation when insult turns to allegation. Punishments are everyday humiliations, public penance, barefoot at mass with a candle, pilgrimage assigned as medicine for desire, fines that bite hardest on the poor, stocks and cucking stools for repeat offenders, excommunication as the spiritual big stick, death for love. That is not the norm. Yet honour is a tinderbox, a brother with a cudgel, a husband with a knife, a feud begun in a lane and ended by a coroner's clerk. We will keep literature close, but not let it lie to us. Troubadours sing fin amour, the refined service to a lady who is often pointedly married. Romance celebrates Tristan Isolde, Lancelot Guinevere, Fabliaux snigger at priors and wives. Well, use these as temperature, not thermometer. They show ideals and anxieties, not minutes and measures. The minutes come from depositions, the woman who swears she heard vows under the yew, the man who repeats the exact words said by a hearth, the midwife who can date a conception to a saint's day. Expect no tidy heroes. You will meet people clever, foolish, brave, mean. A widow who bargains for respect. A clerk who thinks Latin exempts him from morality. A girl who says yes at the door and no by the bed. A mother who is both jailer and ally. You will see how often the village conspires to hide a couple, to expose a rival, to take a fee. Why tell this now? Because behind the glamour of castles and crests, there runs a quiet story of hearts under rules. Forbidden love is a set of hacks in a regulated world, ways to bend pause or outrun systems built for property and lineage. It is also a ledger of costs. Every secret has an accountant, a bent band's notice, a broken friendship, a child with 2 fathers-in-law and 1 in truth. Our method is simple. Each part will focus on a setting, a case, a tactic. We will give you the context, the players, the risk, the trick, the aftermath. No flinching, no smirking. We will keep dates when they help and drop them when they get in the way of breath. Tonight we light a candle at the church porch and watch 2 hands meet where the law is most particular on holy ground, but not yet under a priest's pen. Words will make a marriage or a mess. The secret of clandestine consent is our first lock to pick. The church porch is a legal engine disguised as a doorway. It is where the parish lives between blessed and ordinary. where charters are read, fines paid, and brides received. It smells of damp stone, beeswax from yesterday's candles, and the wool of the living who stand there to strike bargains. At dusk it becomes quieter, and therefore bolder. If you mean to dodge the bans, you choose this hour late enough that the curate is at his pottage early enough to claim you did nothing under cover of night. Bans are the public voice of a private Plant 3 Sundays proclamation in church to give any impediment a chance to clear its throat. They cost nothing but time and exposure, and for many that is precisely the cost they cannot pay. A girl who is kin to her suitor in a degree everyone would rather not count, a widow whose lord has other designs for her dower, a craftsman who fears his guildmaster, a priest's niece who is no niece, each has a reason to prefer the parish not be asked its opinion. The porch then, they come by different paths and the same resolution. He Thomas Atwelly arrives first cap in hand, a posy ring hidden in his palm, a coin for her earnest in his pouch. She, Alice Miller, comes with her cousin Joan, because a woman alone to a porch at dusk breeds stories, and stories breed courts. 2 witnesses make the difference between a marriage and a tale. Credible witnesses make the difference between a marriage and a loss. They are chosen like tools. Joan, a householder of good repute. Will Carter, who can say what he saw without embroidery. Do not pick the garrulous. The consistory has wide ears and a long year. Words are the work, not poetics, formulae. Canon law by now has set the gramma sponsalia per verba de praesenti, the present tense. Taking makes a marriage there and then. I take you as my wife, and I take you as my husband. No if, no when, no after harvest, or if my father agrees. Conditions turn present into future, and future tense is only betrothal de futuro, which binds in honor, but not in fact, until the bed confirms it. The bed will confirm it if you let it, but a porch promise mangled by shyness or cleverness becomes the sort of case that eats a year in the archdeacon's court. Thomas tries to be brave. Alice, he says, I will take thee for my... That will is soft as breath, but law hears grammar like thunder. Joan clears her throat. Thomas starts again, red to the ears. I take thee for my wedded wife to have and to hold. Better. Alice must answer in kind, and I take thee for my wedded husband. No God willing, no so long as. Piety that makes a condition undoes consent. The ring matters less than the words, but it speaks to the world in a language everyone reads. A silver hoop, a motto in French inside it that says more than they dare, mon coeurs entier, my whole heart. He sets it on her right hand, left for solemnizing later, and presses the coin into her palm. In markets, coin seals bargains. In porches, it does the same. He gives a morning gift with his eyes, if not his purse. She gives her dower a name in her mind. Witnesses watch the hands. They must later swear to what was said and how. Handfast they will say, and the court will ask, whose hand lay upon whose? Was it joined over a book? Did the parties speak in present words? Did they kiss? The kiss proves nothing in law, but everything in narrative. It will be remembered, so you may as well mean it. Why the knife edge? because a dozen tiny slips will turn a valid secret wedding into a ruinous misunderstanding. Ambiguity. I take thee said once and I will take thee said second. Was the second consent or a promise? The court will pass syllables like a schoolman. Witnesses of poor fame. Two men drunk from alehouse light. A sister already in a quarrel with the bride's aunt. A boy. Expect depositions that read like lampoons. Impediment whispered too late. A cousin appears with a memory of shared great-grandparents. Even if the degree is lawful now, the stain is enough for a lord to say the match is unseemly. Law and power are siblings who pretend they are not. Clerical meddling. A curate who wants fees will call your porch vows irregular for want of bans, and irregular becomes invalid in talk. Truth before Trent priest and bans are for solemnity, not substance, but the parish thinks otherwise, and defamation bites harder than canon. Conditional consent. If my father agree, if we can live, if God give leave. Each makes your present a future. Bed after such words is the dangerous middle de futuro cum copula, which canonists will argue into a marriage. Enemies will argue into sin. Foreign tongues. Lovers who garland their vows with troubadour French may find a judge who pretends not to understand. Speak plainly in the words the village can repeat without romance. There are other traps. Lent and Advent forbid solemnizing with mass and crown. They do not forbid consent, yet neighbors confuse seasons and substance. A man with a grudge declares no weddings in Lent, as if that voided word spoken in March twilight. A priest hints that the church will refuse the churching of a woman who has crept to a bed by porch. Vows nonsense mostly. Noise turns into shame. So couples learn craft. They bring a token script. I take thee written by a clerk friend on a scrap practiced under breath, until shyness won't steal the verb. They rehearse the witness's tale who stood where, when the bell had rung, that the sun had not set. They keep the door visibly ajar, so no one can say they hid. They keep it not wide, so no one can say a crowd gathered for scandal. They stand where the light still finds faces, so a judge cannot later say I doubt the witness saw. They choose a weekday without a saint to quarrel with their memory. After the words come the tactics. If they have said de praesenti, they should not linger at the porch to be congratulated into trouble. Either they go at once to a house where a bed will make law by morning, or they separate to be cunning another day. The halfway vows tonight, bed in a week, invites rivals. A Lord Steward turns up tomorrow with a better offer for Alice's mother. A guildmaster hints at withdrawal of favour. A cousin tells the curate that what was said wasn't proper. Meanwhile, Thomas Rival, Geoffrey the Reeve's son, spreads a story that he spoke first to Alice last Martinmas in the lane, which would make her Thomas' wife in lawless fact and Geoffrey's in law. Off to consistory, they go to swear and be sworn at for months, while harvest goes to someone else. The strongest shield is clarity, followed by privacy. A present tense exchange in front of two decent souls, then a door closed, a bed, and a morning that can be pointed at. That order turns gossip into penance for the gossips. Anything fuzzier feeds the parish's favourite sport, defamation, turn to depositions. Depositions turn to fines, fines turn to feuds. The porch gives you its Lyman threshold, 1 foot on flag, 1 foot on consecrated stone. Step wrong, and you are neither in nor out, neither married nor free. Step right, and the world will pretend you did something sly while complying with the exact law. In the long ledger of forbidden love, the porch is the neatest hack and the messiest risk. They finish it well this evening, our Thomas and Alice. Present words, steady hands, Jones, clear eye, no ifs, a ring that fits a coin that clinks. The churchyard yew stirs, a rook complains, the curfew bell flexes its voice for later. Thomas does not overstay his courage. Alice does not wait for a blessing she cannot have. They leave by different paths and arrive by the same door elsewhere where law may be given its cradle. There is a door, a hearth, and a bed that rustles like a secret. You can argue canon till the candles gutter. The bed will decide faster. If vows were de praesenti in the porch, the law is already made. The bed will only make it harder to undo. If the lovers bungled and made de futuro, I will take you than copula. The old clerk's word for Congress turns promise into bond de futuro cum copula. The jurists split hairs. Body parts, ignore them. Thomas and Alice arrive not together, caution, and then together sense. The host is a widow who counts herself friend to both and enemy to no one, useful neutrality. Her house smells of rushes, stale ale, and last year's apples. She sets bread in a cup, then busies herself in the buttery for longer than necessary. If anyone asks later, she can say she stooped for the salt, while hands found each other, and the future ceased to be an if. The bed is straw in a sacking tick, 2 blankets, 1 coarse sheet for decent people. Alice stares at the weave as if it might advise. Thomas' fingers shake as if he'd been set to draw a bow after ploughing all day. Shyness is not a legal category, and still it undoes knights. They laugh, which is mercy. Then they remember the porch and the words, and try not to put any new condition into the room. There are vows that do not belong in bed. If you love me, if we have a boy, the law doesn't hear these. The heart sometimes does and remembers unkindly. Quietly, you should know what consummation does in this world and what it does not. It does not make a de praesenti marriage any more real. There are valid marriages never bedded and invalid ones bedded twice. It does make proof easier. The consistory will listen more keenly to 2 neighbors who say they lay that night than to 2 who only heard words at dusk. It complicates annulment on grounds of impotence or error, because once bedded couples cannot be put back like damp bread to prove they were never dough. There are ugly cases in the books where judges send couples to be tried shut for a time with bedclothes to settle a question of possibility. Better judges rely on oaths and physicians. Worst ones humiliate. Thomas and Alice would prefer kindness never to be tested. What of blood on the sheet? You have heard that people display it like a flag of virtue. In truth, some do, many don't. It proves little. Hymens tell no clean truth. Work riding mischance and simple variety make nonsense of the sheet's legend. Yet neighbors are neighbors. A sheet hung discreetly will be read more kindly than one hidden. The widow knows this. In the morning, she folds the linen rough side in, carries it as if it were washing and not narrative, and airs it where eyes can see without quite staring. It is a local language, like calling the midwife for bread. and everyone understanding there will be another mouth by Michaelmas. There is also the small economy of the morning gift, not the old Anglo-Saxon Morgengifu in land and treasure, that age past, but a remnant of the idea, a token, a coin, a ribbon, a promise made in clear daylight and remembered by a friend. Thomas presses a silver penny into Alice's palm. Not bride price, not purchase, but a mark of "I meant last night and mean this day." Alice says the word dower aloud just once, not as land, but as the right to the third that custom allows a widow. Saying it writes a faint line in the air that men sometimes forget to see. The widow hears and nods she will tell it straight if asked. Neighbours are the real court next day. Windows watch the lane, wells hold audiences. Bakehouses magnify a whisper until it lifts like leaven. If the couple meant secrecy, they show enough to stop noise being filled with invention. Joan's sensible witness from the porch walks by at prime, not by accident, and nods once at the widow's lintel. Will Carter, the other witness, happens to draw water and remarks, "God give you joy of your house," in a voice pitched exactly to carry. This is how privacy keeps its dignity without making a vacuum for malice. There is risk here too. A rival has his own morning. Geoffrey Reeves' son tells the Alabench he spoke those words with Alice last Martinmas by the hedge. A dangerous claim if true, that would make his the de praesenti, and last night Thomas adultery. The difference between a memory and a lie is often the number of people willing to swear. Geoffrey will find today fewer than yesterday. The porch was busy. Joan's tongue is sharp. Will Carter dislikes Reeves. Still expect trouble to walk itself to the archdeacon's court, for there is no moment in life so private that it cannot be converted into parchment and fees. And how do courts settle such talk? Not by peering between sheets, but by oaths. The couple take theirs that they exchanged present words, or if future that they lay thereafter. Witnesses swear to words, places, hour. Sometimes there is compurgation oath helpers who stake their own reputation that this person tells truth. A midwife may be called months later to speak to dates because bellies do a kind of calendar that jurists cannot read. She says, at Candlemas, her womb quickened and the court counts backward with lips pursed. Pity the couple for whom arithmetic becomes prosecution. There is the matter of impotence, no one's favorite topic, everyone's favorite sneer. Annulment on those grounds requires proof harsh enough that many withdraw the claim. A man may be told to submit to physicians, a woman likewise. Rarely grotesquely couples are told to attempt congress under supervision. That is the scandal you think it is. Canonists prefer a year and a day of non-consummation as proof. For Thomas and Alice, that is a cautionary tale, not a path. They gave the law what it recognizes and the village what it will accept. Now enemies must work harder, but enemies are plentiful. A Lord Steward arriving with a better match for Alice's kin. A guildmaster reminding Thomas that apprentices who marry without leave lose standing. A curate who mutters about bans and pretends not to know the difference between solemnity and substance. Noise becomes sanction if allowed to settle. So the couple do the next wise thing ordinary chores. They go visible in daylight, with nothing of the fugitive about them. Alice helps at the bakehouse. Thomas takes his turn at the well and at the gleaner's rota this very afternoon. People forgive secrets that end in work. The sheet story is managed. The widow speaks if asked without embroidery. They were handfast last night in the porch words. They lay in my spare bed. In the morning he gave a penny, and I took it for courtesy. Note the rhythm porch bed, penny. Words act token. It is a narrative a court understands and a village too. Fewer adjectives, more sequence. If the world were kind that would finish it, it is not. There remains the rough music, the village's capacity to punish mismatches with saucepans and songs. A lord and a servant girl. A boy who ran ahead of his means. A widow who has married before the parish has finished tutting. Each may be treated to charivari, rattled pots, donkey rides, lampoons posted at the cross. It isn't law. It bites anyway. The best defense is allies. Joan on one doorstep, Will on another, the widow in her doorway, each with a face that says, "Not tonight." Rough music prefers cowards' gaps. A street that looks like a single body denies it air. You are thinking of children because everyone does. They are proof and problem in one. Early swelling is eloquent. Untimely it can be made to argue a man into or out of a noose. A midwife's word is wait. Counting from last night forward can save or sink. You see why couples choose their witnesses by steadiness, not sentiment. A woman like Joan knows when to say St. Peter's Day rather than the full moon, because the former a clerk can put into a register and the latter into a joke. The morning ends with a small peace offering to the world. The widow sends a heel of bread to old Meg. Alice carries it. Thomas takes a billet to Rowan. He saws it in two and leaves half. Coin is dear. Reciprocity is cheaper and worth more. The village is a stomach. Keep it just fed enough not to chew your story into scandal. By noon, the white heat of peril cools to the long ember of process. There will be talk, perhaps court, perhaps only the old harmless gossip that powders every doorsill. For now the law is in their bones, as well as the book which is all a secret can ask. The parish digests a secret like a cow chews a cud. The law sets a net. Within a week, a man with a folded writ appears at Thomas' door. He is the apparitor summoner, hat full of parishes and stories, voice proud with other people's business. He reads the citation aloud Latin, first English after, and leaves a date next consistory day at the archdeacon's court in the nave of the mother church, where souls are tried in front of saints. The charge is politely couched causa matrimoni et diffamationissa, marriage cause entangled with slander because Geoffrey has boasted of his Martinmas vows, and others have repeated them as if they were weather. Thomas learns the first rule appear. 3 defaults make contumacy. Contumacy makes excommunication. Excommunication empties a man's bench at market faster than plague. So he goes on the day, named cap in hand, Alice with him and Joan and Will, near enough to be seen without crowding the matter. The court sits with a bustle that looks like a fair. A commissary for the archdeacon, a scribe with an ear like a hawk, and ink on his fingers proctors, who sell sense for a fee. promoters who act like prosecutors in God's livery, and a queue of cases defamation tithes morals, a quarrel over a pew. The law is a liturgy. First admission names called parties stand the citation proved by the apparitor's oath. Then the libel not insult here, but the written statement of your case. Geoffrey's libel says he took Alice to wife at Martinmas, per verba de praesenti, in the lane by St. Peter's stile. Thomas' answer denies it and offers his own libel present words in the porch last week, followed by cohabitation. Alice is named as consenting party in Thomas' cause, and as the object of Geoffrey's boast in Geoffrey's. The commissary frowns at the tangle and bids them take proctors if they have sense. They do. It costs, but not as dearly as ignorance. Now come oaths. The court moves by sworn word. Thomas and Alice swear de veritate dicendato, tell the truth that matters. That phrase is your craft. Not every truth, not heat and embroidery, but material fact. The words use the place, the hour, who stood where, what was given after. Alice does not tell a love story. She tells a sequence. On the eve of St. Thomas, she says in the church porch at dusk, Thomas at well took my right hand in his and said, I take thee for my wife, and I said the like. Joan and Will saw and heard. She does not mention the ring's motto. Judges are not romancers, nor the colour of the sky scribes don't charge by the hue. Beware the oath ex officio. The court may put a book in your hand and ask everything and anything by reason of office fishing on the strength of fama public fame. A timid soul answers beyond the question and nets themselves. Proctors earn their pennies here. They bow and say, my client is ready to answer to things articulated and insist on positions written articles, to which you answer true or not true. This narrows the river to stepping stones, that on the said eve he spoke in present words, that she answered in present words, that after they lay as man and wife. You answer steady, the proctor says so noted, and ink makes a path you can walk again without stumbling. Geoffrey's proctor is no fool. He files interrogatories for your witnesses. Were they standing within 6 feet? Was the light sufficient? Did they have a quarrel with the reeve? Did they drink ale after? Have they heard talk that the couple were kin? He tries to turn farmer to fog. Your proctor returns the favour who was with Geoffrey at Martinmas. Name them, and we shall see if ghosts will swear. Witnesses are heard apart in a side chapel, scribe bent over their words. Joan is gold. She speaks like a bell clear, few notes true. I stood on Alice's left. I heard Thomas say, I take thee, I saw the ring. The bell for curfew had not yet begun. Will Carter was on the step a pace off. I am no kin to the reeve. Will sober for once manages almost as well. Geoffrey's men are thinner, one thinks he heard. One knows by report. One is a cousin with a grievance about a borrowed harrow. The scribe's pen likes phrases such as dicit de auditue says from hearing, because judges discount them. There is a pause of weeks for publication, the point when depositions may be read to the other side or not if the court keeps them close to prevent rehearsed answers. Proctor's bargain. Publish on the main points, suppress the gossip. Fees accumulate as neatly as sins. Thomas finds the second rule budget the season. Sell a pig early. Ask a fair neighbour to lend. Pay the proctor in part and in bread. Bring your own ink to the scribe if he will suffer it. Keep copies of every each sitting's record because memory under fear is a sieve. Meanwhile, the court itches to heal. Ecclesiastical law loves concord. The commissary leans forward. "Will you solemnize?" he asks. "Will you make the porch marriage public banns and blessing before God and bench?" This is common in irregular but valid cases. The court confirms the knot and tames the scandal with mass penny to poor box candle in hand. Thomas is willing. Alice nods. Geoffrey must be got to desist, and here your proctor earns his shilling again. He drafts a cautio de non petendoa caution that Geoffrey will not sue further nor boast marriage, and threatens him with penance for defamation if he will not sign. But say Geoffrey fights on and cries impediment consanguinity to the 4th degree or pre-contract at Martinmas. The court will order inquiries parish by parish, kin by kin. A clerk with a list of names asking old women to count cousins on their fingers. If he proves pre-contract de praesenti, you are in a hard place. If he proves de futuro, your bed after binds you to him instead. That is why the porch was a knife edge. That is why Joan's clear ear saves the marriage more than any ring. There is always the shadow of impotence raised in malice sometimes. The proctor will move to quash it as slander unless a spouse themselves alleges it. If alleged, the court appoints matrons, women of good fame, or physicians to examine. Better commissaries hate this work and avoid it. Your defense is the simplest sentence in the case. We lay together as man and wife, and I conceived on such a day spoken months hence, with a midwife's head nodding beside you. Through all this, keep the 3rd rule, stay ordinary. Work in sight. Greet the curate. Pay your tithe. Choose your words in the alehouse. Do not trade insults for sport because defamatio has a long tail and short patience. Your clever tongue can buy you a 2nd suit, while the 1st still bites. If fined, pay cleanly and early. If penance is set candle at mass bare feet, to the chancel rail doe it with a straight back. A village forgets a humiliation done well. It savours a humiliation refused. At last the bench speaks. Best case adjudged married, the court finds present words proven and orders solemnization next feast day. Geoffrey is warned and immersed. You pay fees and a poor box penny and go in peace. Middle case admitted doubt. The court, hating doubt, compels congruent settlement, a bond to solemnize. Geoffrey bound to silence on pain of penance. The marriage lives by management. Worst case pre-contract proven, the porch undone by older words, then grief and appeals, and a life rethreaded. In many dioceses, an appeal to the consistory of the bishop lies. It costs more than most can bear. Some take their grief to another shire and begin again under a new curate's courtesy. The law hates that. The world does it anyway. Thomas and Alice get the better ending. The commissary, who has seen 100 like them, writes the decree with a face like a ledger matrimonium validum. Bans to be asked. Solemnization, not in a forbidden season. Both parties to abstain from defaming the other on pain of public penance. Geoffrey is immersed and made to stand one Sunday with a candle and a sour mouth. The village marks the date. Curiosity replaces malice. The bakehouse returns to dough. They still must outlast the fees and fatigue. They harvest with sore tempers and lighter purses. Yet the marriage has moved from whisper to register. What began under a porch has been hammered straight on a bench. The secret is now an open fact. Love did not win, procedure did. In this century, that counts as triumph. Cities breed secrecy the way ponds breed midges. In the lanes below the guild halls, between the bakehouse heat and the sour breath of the tanners, love learns a different craft from the village porch. Here, the bell still governs curfew, but there are more doors to knock, more stairways that turn twice more people who live by hearing what others dare not say. Chief among them is the go-between, the board, the procuress, the aunt, the good wife who helps, part chaperone, part porter, part solicitor, with a head full of calendar and canon. Call her Mother Tib if you like. Every town has one. She keeps a cleanish room over a cookshop near the river, a brazier that makes a person hopeful, and a cupboard of small items that solve large problems. Posy rings with mottos in French, skeins of thread, scraps of parchment, 2 caps plain and 2 a touch too jaunty, a purse with 3 sorts of coin parish city and the kind that answers to no mint, and a ledger of obligations written only in her head. She knows the curfew times, the market days, the weeks when the archdeacon sits, the forbidden seasons for solemnizing Advent Lent, and which beadles can be persuaded with a hot pasty at the right hour. People come to her door, 2 knocks and a pause. A clerk who ought to be at his books, a widow with a lord's steward in pursuit, an apprentice with a master's widow in his eyes and a guild in his way, a Jewess who sells fine thread to silk wives and has let herself look twice at the wrong man, a canon's niece who is no kin to anyone useful. Mother Tib listens. She asks the questions a curate should ask and often doesn't. Was it de praesenti who heard you? What saint's day was that? How close a cousin is close. She has the degrees of kinship in her bones to the 4th, now not the 7th, and she can count them off on a roasting spit. Fathers, brothers, son is 2, mothers, cousins, daughter is 3. You said, if, don't say if again. Her trade is not only beds, it is paths. She arranges the safe house, a midwife's back room, a scrivener's loft, a bathhouse cubicle when the stews are open, selects witnesses of decent fame, and chooses the hour when the watch yawns and the parish judge is eating eel. She will carry a message, like a psalm, not in a letter with a seal that can be flourished in court, but as a folded scrap tucked inside a real psalm leaf, written by a friendly scrivener who knows to use present tense and plain English. She practices letterlocking as a cook practices pies, a slit, a tuck, a pin of thread, a fold that tears if opened by any hand but the named one, a smear of candle wax that looks like a drip from vespers. If a letter must be written, she stands over the scrivener and trims the romance. No verses, she says, no forevers. Write, I take you for my wife and sign no name. Put the day as the Wednesday after St. Lucy, not the morning when your hair smelled of rosemary. If the letter is found, I want it to say marriage, not verse. She makes the boy practice the spoken words under his breath until I take lives in his mouth. She makes the girl practice saying the like without swallowing the verb. Mother Tib knows the stew's licensed bathhouses that steam with the bishop's rento pen on some festivals and shut on others. South of the river, they'll be called the Bankside Stews in London, and the Bishop of Winchester will take a goose from them. Elsewhere, the names change, the rules do not. The board uses the stews for meeting rooms, not trade, because hot water and privacy soften people, and the beadles look for coin, not consent. She hires a cubicle for an hour, brings a comfit for the roomkeeper, places 2 stools, and ensures that the boy and the girl talk, and not only touch. "Say it now," she tells them. "Say I take." The steam makes a fog, the words cut it. She also knows the law's pitfalls. The ecclesiastical word for her sin is lenocinium pandering. A moralist will paint her as corrupter and temptress. A city borough court may cuck her on a stool, whip her pillory, her with a tabard labelled board, or banish her for a season. The consistory can set public penance. In some places, a friar will thunder about her from a pulpit. None of this stops people coming, because here is the truth: without such women, many secrets end uglier. She has brought more couples to honest words than some curates. She has prevented more forced betrothals than any saint in glass. She speaks canon the way sailors speak weather. 3 bands is for the priest's peace and the parish's mouth, she says. Consent makes, but it must be clear consent. She knows the impediments, like the alphabet: pre-contract, consanguinity, affinity, orders, vow, difference of faith. She has a card player's memory for pre-contracts that rivals invent after ale. He said, "I will to you last. Lammas, I want the woman who heard it. If she is a cousin, get me another. If no witness, no bed until we make a porch that will stand up in front of a clerk with a pen." She times clandestine vows outside the great fasts, not because they're void there, but because fame a public talk runs hotter then. She will mutter, "Do not put God into the condition. He has enough to do." Her housecraft is part sacrament, part theatre. She keeps a chaperone's shawl to throw over a girl when a neighbour pounds the stair. She has a dummy door in a screen so a visitor can appear to come from one room and in truth slip from another. A rosary hangs on a nail. The 4th bead unscrews and hides a thread of parchment. A pilgrim badge from Canterbury sits on a shelf. Behind it is a crack in the plaster where narrower letters sleep. The floor reed mats have been lifted so often they know where secrets prefer to lie. A birch besom leans ready to become honest work at the first fool's knock. Does she blackmail in bad ballads? Yes. In real parishes, survival depends on reputation as much as cunning. She keeps accounts in favours, not cries. "You will swear for Joan when the court sends," she says, "and I will fetch your sister from the priory gate when her temper outruns her vows. You may dislike her, but on the night the lane turns rough, music pots and pans for a mismatch. She has a way of leaning in a doorway with her besom and muttering a word that sends boys home. Tomorrow, she says, and tomorrow forgets. She will endanger you too if you let her. She loves arrangement, and arrangement can become habit. Lovers begin to think doors will always open, beadles will always look away, letters will always travel. A boy boasts to a friend that Mother Tib can get him into any house. The friend repeats the line for courage. A promoter of the archdeacon hears, and now there is farmer enough for the oath ex officio. Or a letter she folded with a clever tear falls into the hands of a scrivener's wife whose cousin needs a story. Or the stew keeper is in debt and sells to the beadles not only bath time but names. Secrecy that becomes a system makes enemies out of bored men. The board's canon is self-preservation. Don't multiply acts. One porch, one bed, one token, one letter only, and that burnt by the reader with the wick of the rushlight. Do not return to the same room twice in a week. Do not speak the same lies. Variety is easier to spot than repetition. When the court sits, she tells her clients, "Go ordinary, bake spin, carry water." She knows that work is the only disguise that persuades. Sometimes she plays guardian angel to the unguarded. A young friar with a face like a hymn and a girl with a laugh like an orchard make her sharper than usual. "You," she says to the friar, "go back to your prior and beg for a change of obediences. You to the girl, marry the boy who asked you last Martinmas and live long. Clerical vows bite deeper than a guild rule. You will weep in my room, and then weep in court, and then weep under a sermon. No, it is not piety, it is statistics." She has watched the church's anger outlast the lover's courage. She knows sanctuary too, and the days when sanctuary fails, outlawry hue and cry. She can steer a frightened lad into the abbey's porch and keep him there until a proctor can talk down a constable. She can also say, "Not this time when the matter is blood," and the sheriff is already counting the fee. People call her a witch for knowing such things. It is only minutes and men learned over years. Most of all, she knows how to end. After the words are said, and the bed has made the law, she arranges the cooling a morning gift, a loaf sent next door, a stick of wood left on a rival's pile, a brief absence from her stare. She tells the lovers, "You are not interesting. Be boring for a fortnight." Boring prevents libel from fattening into suit. Boring starves the board herself of custom, which is why not every board can manage it. Mother Tib can, because she likes notices of marriages more than notices of penance. She has kept enough couples out of the archdeacon's queue to forgive the ones she has marched in. You want a moral. There isn't one that won't curdle. The city's shadows feed the courts, and the churches alike. Without go-betweens, more girls are forced, more boys are crushed, more secrets end in gutters. With them, more words are spoken that a judge can write down. More beds are warmed that a parish can forgive, and more fees are collected that keep scribes in ink. Love has always found agents. In these centuries, some of the canniest wear aprons and know the collect for the fourth Sunday in Lent by heart. Walk inside the precinct and it feels different at once. The air smells of beeswax and vellum rather than turnip and tallow. Bells keep time, so exactly it seems sin ought to give up for want of opportunity. And yet the holy places grow the most dangerous loves precisely because rules thicken there like ivy, and privacy is both rarer and better disguised. Begin with the secular clergy, parish priests, vicars, cathedral canons. Since the great councils tightened continence, a man in sacred orders, subdeacon, and above, is not to marry nor bed. In statute it is clear, in practice it is weather. Visitations carry presentment articles that read like a catechism with a raised eyebrow. Whether your parson keeps a concubine, commonly called his niece, whether she dwells under the same roof, whether children are commonly called sons of the rectory, the parish knows. If the man preaches plain, buries his dead without fees, they cannot spare lends a cow when frost is late. The village may decide his niece is an inconvenience they can afford. If he is sharp on tithes and slow at bedsides, the same woman becomes a scandal marched straight to the archdeacon. The law's path is oddly domestic. First offence. Many dioceses set correction. Put her away beyond 2 miles. Swear an oath. Pay a fine the size of a fat pig. Do public penance. Barefoot at the chancel step with a candle and the archdeacon looking like stone. Repeat it, and a clerk risks suspension from saying mass. Repeat it again, and his benefice may be sequestrated. Income locked a curate installed. Some bishops are Puritans, some politicians. One will thunder and strip. Another will accept that a good niece quietens a man who would otherwise haunt alehouses. Either way, the woman pays first. She is named. She bears the candle. She hears the lad at the forge sing a wicked rhyme and cannot crack his jaw for it without buying a second charge brawling. Cathedral canons sit between monk and parish priests, type-ended, learned, sometimes worldly. Their clothes, the walled precinct breeds, familiar arrangements, a housekeeper who keeps more than keys. A clerk in minor orders who can still marry, but contemplates advancement, and so puts off and slips. The chapter disapproves in Latin. The porter winks in English. The prebend pays regularly, and the choir is in good voice, and so a niece climbs the back stair for 5 quiet years until a new dean arrives from another city with a clean broom and a promoter eager for farmer. Then the whole thing flowers into parchment libels. Oaths the woman named with a surname she has never used. The canon's dignity unstitched in open court, while the very lads he taught to chant repeat details in the bakehouse for a month. The monastic world keeps a stricter theatre and breeds its own mischief. Nuns live under enclosure. The parlour has a grill. The turner revolving cupboard passes bread and sealed letters with the holiness of a stage trick. Visitation questions are blunt. Whether men have been admitted without license, whether the prioress keeps gentles in the guest hall beyond due courtesy, whether any sister is suspected of incontinence. The prioress sighs, the guest mistress blushes with fury, a conversus lay brother who turns spits in the kitchen stares very hard at a cabbage. Nothing provokes poetry like a grill. A young clerk tonsured ink stain dangerous with a psalm reads a girl through iron and catches fire. The letters begin a marginal acrostic in a borrowed book, a prayer folded round a second sheet that says de futuro in every word but never writes it. The seal of confession will not save them if they mistake its reach. A confessor may not reveal your sin. He may not act on it either. If he is virtuous, he confines you to counsel. If he is weak, he becomes the sin. Solicitation in confession, asking for what should be forbidden, draws punishments sharper than ordinary lust, precisely because it profanes the tool of cure. The better houses move confessors like chess pieces when rumors begin to smell specific. When such love is pulled into light, the law sorts by habit. A nun found to have broken enclosure, or her vows faces imprisonment in cell bread and water fare, and a transfer to a stricter house for edification. A monk who has left his obedience risks the name apostate hunting by beadles, and a ceremony of humiliation upon return prostration. In the choir, a discipline of rods before the brethren, a ban to the lowest place for a year. If there is a child, the world makes it a sermon. For a woman vowed, there is no legitimation by subsequent marriage. For a secular couple, there sometimes is. In either case, the child eats, grows, and is beloved by someone who can neither say it loud nor say nothing at all. And the confessional in law, the seal, is absolute. A priest who betrays what he hears sits down to dine with Judas in every preacher's rhetoric from here to Candlemas. Courts pry at the edges in another way. Have you heard common fame of this? They ask a confessor. He may answer to fama public talk, but not to what was whispered under ghostly counsel. Parishioners think confession is amnesty. In practice, it is a wall your sin stops with the priest, but it also stops him from being your agent. He cannot warn your mother. He cannot tell your lover to run. He cannot alter the world on the strength of a secret he may not share. Lovers tell too much to the one man who cannot move and then curse him for his obedience. Better go to Mother Tib, who has no seal and many doors. Better yet, say fewer words and make fewer acts. Sometimes the church cleans its own house with messy hands. A bishop's visitation arrives a registrar with parchment, a table set in the chapter house, a list of names. Parishioners present their parson for keeping a woman. The parson presents the churchwardens for failing to mend the north aisle roof. The churchwardens present the alehouse for Sunday trade, and the gossips for slander. Everyone sins by committee, and everyone is corrected with fees. The niece disappears to a cousin in another parish until the weather changes. If she is clever, she returns as a married woman to a different man and sits in the third pew with a face like law. If she is not, she tries to keep house in the next street and finds rough music on her doorstep come Whitsun. Not all clerical love is male-female, and not all statutes thunder against it by name. The catch-all category of sodomy lies coiled in penitentials and sermons. Some dioceses chase it with more zeal than others. In chapter closes, where too many men eat, pray, and sleep within the same square of walls, affection learns to live in spare looks and long hymns, and sometimes breaks its own rules. When it does, punishments are quiet. If the culprit is useful, and very loud if someone has grown tired of him. Silence is not mercy, it is management. Pull a liaison fully into the light consistory or bishop's court, and the end is rarely theatre, it is process. A curate is told to put away his woman on pain of loss. He does so for a season, then sends coins by a boy to the next parish. A canon is moved to a prebend a county away. A nun is exchanged between houses with a letter that says less than everyone knows. A confessor is replaced, and the sermon the next Sunday is about Lent's worth of fish, not desire. Heat goes under the stone again. The exceptions are when men of rank are involved and enemies want rope. Then a royal writ bites the ecclesiastical ankle. Then a household feud becomes a morality play with witnesses in velvet. But that is for later in our ledger. What should a lover learn from the holy precincts that vows are teeth, that titles protect until they don't, that the most dangerous room is the one sanctified for other business? The grill makes poetry and peril. The parlour breeds both comfort and deposition. The rectory is a house like any other, only louder when it falls. If there is a mercy here, it is small and practical. Many courts prefer concord to thunder. A priest who truly sends his niece away may keep his living. A canon who solemnly abjures, pays, and sings a psalm in a low voice may continue to read in choir. The church wants order more than victory. Lovers want victory more than order. Between those wants, a handful of lives find a passable track. Markets are where borders pretend to soften. At the bench where onions thread and news change hands, eyes also change their minds. She is baptized and wears her hair like any town girl. He carries his master's tally and the faint stain of ink that belongs to clerks. Between them stands a charter, a badge, and a dozen statutes that do not know the smell of apples in winter. Across 12th to 15th centuries, the map is mottled juries and juderas set by charter. Mudajar quarters under Christian kings. Mozarab parishes under Muslim ones. Streets called the Jewry in England. Before 1290, La Aljama in Aragon, the Mela, later in Maghrib. Do not say ghetto yet. That word will be minted in Venice much later. But there are quarters with gates, curfews, rents, and rules. And there is the Fourth Lateran Council's mark, the badge or distinctive dress that Christians say is for clarity and Jews call humiliation. Borders exist in cloth and bell time as much as in law. The law does not like love across it. In canon law, a Christian cannot validly marry a Jew or a Muslim unless the non-Christian first receives baptism. Councils thunder against mixing, not only marriage but wet nursing, servant hiring, feasting, for fear of scandal and alleged contamination. In royal law, the tone varies by kingdom. In Castile and Aragon, the Siete Partidas outlaw sex across the faith line with punishments that read like a sermon in steel. Charters add fines, exile sometimes worse when crowds are angry and magistrates timid. In England, before the expulsion of 1290, borough custom and royal writ guard, Jews as the kings, men useful for revenue. And yet defamation, she lay with the Jew, can move a court faster than theft. In Al-Andalus and later under Christian rule, Muslim jurists forbid Muslim women to marry outside Islam and warn Muslim men against Christian wives who will raise children for another creed. Qais and priests are rare allies in saying no. So how do such couples meet? Everywhere the world leaks, at the fair, at a physician's door. Jewish and Muslim medicine has a reputation. Even Christians pay for in a workshop where a Christian fuller brings cloth to a Jewish dyer at the mill, a Mudajar village still uses, and the Christian reeve still taxes. There are letters, but not many. A folded scrap in Hebrew or Romance is a risk, and scribes have wives who talk. Lovers learn code, a sprig of rosemary left on the bench. A needle threaded in 2 colors means tomorrow. A loaf cut the long way is no. Mother Tib or her Aragonese cousin will carry a word wrapped in a psalm leaf as if prayers were envelopes. The first temptation is conversion for love. It happens sincerely, fearfully, and in poor taste. A Jewish youth takes baptism at Easter, for the truth say the sponsors, for her say the neighbors. Canon law will smile and insist on catechesis. The Kehillah Jewish congregation will weep and pronounce herem ban on the apostate. His father will sit shiva as if for the dead. He may marry the Christian girl now, but the town will call him neophyte, not neighbor, and his children will be baptized with extra scrutiny and fewer godparents than kindness would provide. In Iberia, there will come a later word converso and a later tribunal to gnaw at such households, asking whether Saturday lamps burn too bright and pork is eaten too cleverly. In the Muslim case, the mirror distorts differently. A Christian woman converts to Islam and marries a Muslim. Christian law cries apostasy and sometimes kidnapping. Muslim law may accept the union, but mistrust the family who loses a daughter to the other god. Each town has a story that begins with baptism and ends with no one speaking to anyone in the market for a year. The second path is to call it not marriage. Lovers contrive night walking quick doors, and neighbors who will look away for a loaf. This is frailer than usual because communal courts are sharper at borders than at beds. The Bet Din Jewish court will fine men for intercourse with a Christian and whip boys into sense. Sometimes it pulls rank and tells the royal bailiff first, bargaining its obedience for the right to scour its own. Christian borough courts can move faster than consistory when there is street heat. A cry of she is stolen can make a rescue of an elopement and a riot of a kiss. In frontier towns you will hear of amen letters, safe conducts and truce days. Lovers try to smuggle themselves through the same gaps as merchants. Stories end badly often enough to make a catalogue. England, late 13th century. A goldsmith's apprentice accused of lying with a Jewess. The sheriff plays for royal favour and the town plays for blood. The woman disappears to Lincoln, and a year later they are both rumours under other names, because 1290 empties juries in a hurry and love is swept out with pawn tickets. Provence. 14th century. A Christian weaver and a Jewish dyer's daughter. The girl is hidden for teaching in a cousin's house. A friar's sermon makes the cousin's wife brave. The case becomes defamation against the girl because honor makes an easier defendant than men. Seville, after the pogroms of 1391. A converso boy and an old Christian girl. No law needs to be cited. Men with cudgels recite it with fists. The pair marry quietly later and forget to teach their grandchildren the right way to light Friday evening, or remember and pay for it in another court. When courts engage formally, they juggle jurisdictions. The archdeacon wants confessions and bans the royal judge wants peace in the streets. The Aljama elders want less talk. Sometimes the neatest exit is solemn conversion followed by public marriage, with the parish's poor box fed and the priest grinning like a man who collected 2 fees for 1 couple. Sometimes a banishment solves the problem. The Christian lad goes for service to another town, and the Jewish girl is married to a good man in Calatayud whose beard is sensible. In Muslim towns under Christian kings, there are fuero clauses. A Christian woman who lies with a Muslim may be whipped by both sides and warned that the next time her father forfeits a fine and she forfeits her share of kindness. Children are a theology turned into meat and milk. Whose are they? In Christian doctrine, the child of the baptized is baptized. In Jewish law, matrilineal lines decide a child of a Jewish mother is a Jew, no matter the father's creed. In Muslim law, children in a Muslim household are raised Muslim. A Christian grandmother's lullabies count for nothing at the QA is bench. In practice, grandmothers count for a great deal. Many cross-faith liaisons end with a child spirited across a line to a godparent in another parish, to an aunt in the Juderia, and with two families telling two true tales for 20 years. What of go-betweens here? Mother Tib learns new calendar and courtesy. She knows when Yom Kippur makes a street hush and Ramadan makes a house private. She tells the Christian boy not to knock then. She learns to keep Hebrew letters wrapped in psalms and to lie politely to a QA is man without stepping on God's toes. She can also be the ruin of her clients if she loses the distinction between clever and careless. Stitched courts, like stitched garments, pull one thread her name and the sleeve comes off and then the whole coat. Lovers across faiths must do what all forbidden lovers do, only quieter, fewer acts, better witnesses, no poetry, no crowds. The most honest counsel is also the most unsatisfying. Leave. Not as tragedy, but as prudence. Take service in another town. Go to a marriage of your own people. Write less and work more. The brave die of bravery in stories. The living carry water and make soup and let the ache set like plaster. Sometimes there is concord, a conversion that sticks a marriage that becomes ordinary, a parish that decides to be bored. More often, there is a cost that refuses to be paid in coin, a father who never forgives a feast day where no one comes, a name that doesn't quite fit on the tongue. If you want one small mercy, it is this: the law of proof remains the same. Courts want present words, credible witnesses, plain sequence. They do not judge poems, they judge minutes. The lovers who survive are those who resist turning their case into an argument about God and keep it an argument about what happened when, in front of whom, with which hand, on which stone. Even enemies get tired of tidy stories if they cannot find a crack. Crossing the line between faiths is the highest tariff our ledger knows before we reach princes. Those who paid it left the thinnest records and the thickest ghosts. A household is a little kingdom with its own weather. Bread, ale, keys, and tempers move on the mistress's word, the master's purse, and the steward's stare. Inside that weather, love is not a private spark, it is an economic event. When rank is uneven master, and maid, lord, and laundress, the parish calls it sin, the manor calls it loss, and the borough may call it theft. Begin with the contract that hems a servant's life. Most are hired by the year Michaelmas to Michaelmas at the mop or hiring fare. Wages are partly in coin, partly in keep, and padded with perquisites, a pair of shoes, a hood, a measure of malt. Walk away before term, and you forfeit not only coin but livery. Let a lover coax you down the stair at Compline, and you may be turned out kitless at dawn. The house holds your bed, your chest, your small store of pins. Consent here is said under a roof that can withdraw itself. For the master, the law speaks a language as old as Roman pleading, per quod servitium amisit, whereby he lost his service. If a journeyman entices a maid to tryst, and she is dismissed or is kept from work. The master can sue in the borough court for the loss of service as if a handcart had been broken. It is harsh and tidy. To the manor, a daughter's marriage is also an entry in a ledger, merche, the fine a lord takes when a neef, unfree woman marries, is less a right to her body than a tax upon the household that loses her labour. The tale of a lord's first night is a long-lived myth. The fine is the truth prosaic and costly. Elope without license, and the lord claims harbouring against the man who took her, another theft. This time of a woman reckoned as customary asset. Then there is raptusa word that slithers between meanings, abduction, elopement, rape. A father or guardian with an interest in a girl's labour or marriage sues ravishment to get her back, or to squeeze a composition out of the man. If she is an heiress or a ward, the penalties mount. You have stolen not only a person, but a marriage market. The girl's own appeal of rape exists in law. Medieval success is rare. Courts, clerks, and neighbours prefer the tidier narrative. She went of her will, or he stole her service. Both suit men with ledgers. How does forbidden love start under wages? In the screen's passage where servants pass trays and glances. On the back stair where a candlestick throws a conspirator's light. In the brew house elbow deep in mash. By the river where laundresses work and lords ride out to hawk and get dust on their silk. Power speaks first as permission and errand, a later curfew, a slice off the capon when no one's looking, a ribbon, a silver penny for thread. Promises slide in when your term is out, I will take you. If the words are de futuro, and a bed follows, the woman may take the matter to the consistory and say, compel him to solemnize. The ecclesiastical judge, fonder of consent than coin, may believe her if she has witnesses and a belly that counts to a saint's day. Much more often, the maid must make law out of what the house calls mischief. She will be named lecher nightwalker whore, and defamation will sprout from the kitchen like cress. She answers with sequence porch words, if any the hour, who saw what, who gave what after. The midwife becomes her ally more reliably than the mistress, quickening at Candlemas. She turns moral talk into minutes, which bench and book are better at hearing. The laundress in a lord's hall stands closer to danger than most. She handles linen that tells stories, shirt sheet a boy's first pair of hose, and moves between hall and river, with her arms full of other people's privacy. The lord jokes, the steward smiles without humour, the falconer thinks himself prettier than he is. A woman who refuses a master may be set to weed nettles and find her wages nibbled by fines for trifles. A woman who yields may be moved to a lower stool to stop tongues or to a cousin's cottage for her health. Either path costs. A clever woman finds witnesses before she must pick one. Household ordinances know the problem and pretend to solve it by beating the smallest drum. Servants shall not night walk, they say. Maids shall be in by curfew. No man to visit the women's loft. The rule lives on the kitchen wall. The master breaks it on the stair. A maid who thinks beyond one evening store's favour where it will buy her more than ribbons with the cook who sees everything. The porter who knows whose cap passed the wicket, the chaplain who can say a praesenti in a porch if he is brave or write a letter if he is not. Across class, the streets theatre is rough. A master caught with a maid draws charivari pots, pans and a donkey if the parish is feeling Greek. More often the noise is aimed at the girl. Look how she climbed. Rough music masks envy and asserts the street's supposed guardianship of order. The best answer is a row of silent doorways. Women leaning arms folded saying with their chins that tonight the parish has other business. Mother Tib can do that work when she chooses. Guilds police the same border with different tools. A master taking a servant to bed dishonors his mystery. Ordinances sometimes fine those who keep single women in a house of men. A master's widow is to be treated with reverence, and there are old jokes with sharp teeth about lads who remember that too late. Guild courts love composition money. To the box, apologies in chapter, and a rule written with an extra line that will be ignored next Candlemas. The statute of labourers after plague began to tighten the leash servants not to leave without letters, wages fixed by assessment. Love that pulls a maid to another roof becomes vagabondage in a clerk's hand. Men use statute as cudgel to force a girl back into service when they mean to use her in service. A woman who will not go back must go out, marry, or serve under a gentler roof, or make herself kin to a house that will swear for her at court. There are tricks that turn class theft talk back into consent. One is to marry in a porch with 2 watertight witnesses before the master can blink. Then the bed turns fornication into cohabitation, which clerks prefer. Another is to force publication, make the banns run by a friendly curate 2 parishes away. By the time the household hears, the 2nd Sunday is done and the 3rd sits on the morrow. A third is to move jurisdiction if the manner is harsh. Take the case to the archdeacon. If the archdeacon is pious and deaf, make the borough count the master's lost service, and then offer to compound it in coin in exchange for silence. None of this is justice. All of it is navigation. Not every story is a fall. A maid uses amende futuro to box him into de praesenti under a U. The mistress, none too fond of her husband's thrift, supplies the witness. A laundress catches a lord by custom. She brings 3 older women to the solar at dawn and demands a morning gift, a coin given in sight of people who can enjoy a market day, describing it. A groom says no loudly and finds 3 men willing to say they heard him. The hall learns a border. These are victories that look like neatness. Children turn love to ledger again. A bastard is no one's heir in law. He is everyone's problem in practice. The parish alms box has opinions. The mistress's temper becomes policy. The master's charity turns into a nurse hired out of sight in a street that keeps confidences for bread. If the man is gentle, a corrodia small pension, a loaf, a place by a fire in a lesser hall may be found for the woman. If he is not, the child is sent to wet nurse and grows with a face that reminds the wrong people of a Christmas long ago. The law does not leave you only with sermons. It gives you tools if you dare them, defamation suits to shut wicked tongues, matrimonial causes to compel solemnization, loss of service countered with proof that the master made work unsafe, harboring answered with present consent and a curate's shrug. You win them not with tears, but with time. The saints day the hour, who stood where what coin changed hands, which door was open, how far the candle had burned. Rank likes to deal in generalities. A maid must particularize. You notice by now the refrain that saves lives be ordinary on purpose. After the porch or the bed go out in daylight and work. The more your story looks like household, the less the parish can stomach calling it felony. If you must leave, leave with witnesses and your livery in a bundle. If turned out kitless, borrow a shawl at once and have 3 women say so next market day. If you stay, plant allies in the house, porter, cook, chaplain. When class tries to turn your love into theft, pay the least coin needed to make the cry stop and save the rest of your courage for the court that counts verbs. Climb the stair and the air changes. Linen is finer doors, thicker talk, lower and longer. Love here is never a private appetite. It is a strategy, a treaty sealed with bodies and enforced with sheriffs. The same canon that blessed Thomas and Alice in a porch runs here too, but it runs under a second book tenure and tenure bites. Begin with the ward, the prize no poetry admits. A father dies seized of land. His heir is underage. Instantly a greater lord in England, often the king, takes wardship, the right to the income, the custody of the body, and sharpest blade, the marriage. That marriage can be sold like a hawk. Refusal costs a fine, called the value of the marriage. Steal the ward, and you have committed ravishment of ward, not romance, but a writ that drags you to Westminster with your purse turned inside out. The Statute of Westminster too gives teeth to the guardian's howl. Sheriffs know the fee table by heart. So a girl, call her Isabel, with 50 librates of land in her future, sits in a solar learning French prayers, while men in the hall price her hand like a market. A young knight, land poor and vain rich, writes verses about her eyes like glass and thinks he's being Lancelot. Her guardian thinks in alliances, a border neighbor to quiet a feud, a cousin to keep the fee in the blood, a creditor with the son and a long memory. Isabel's consent matters to canon, to tenure it matters after. If she slips a ring in a porch with a lover and goes to bed before the guardian delivers her, she may have made a marriage and also made war. You hear of abduction and elopement as if the words were twins. They are not. Raptus, the Latin that slides, covers both. Courts untangle by interest. If a ward goes of her, will the guardian still sues, not for her tear, but for the loss of marriage? If she's carried by force, a royal cry rides the shire hue, and cry sheriffs, posse doors, watched bridges named. Either way, the knight who rhymed in the buttery will rhyme no more. He will find himself in the Marshalsea, or lighter by 100 marks, and his song will be sung by beadles for a year. Widows sit at the same table, armed with dower own third of their late husband's freehold for life, and in better houses, a jointure settled in advance. They swear chaste widowhood and receive seisin at the church door, keys in hand like a badge. The world doesn't love rich women whole. Every kin has a plan for them. A lord wants her remarried to a cousin. A king, if she is tenant-in-chief, demands a license or fines her for marrying without leave. A stepson wants her dower counted fast and moved out of the solar. She may choose, and her choice is politics. If she chooses love, she had better choose law first. Here is Lady Marjorie 30, with 2 manners and a face that makes a steward sharpen quills. Suitors arrive with hawks and Latin. She enjoys the embassy and then picks the third man, less grand, more human. They speak de praesenti at her own chapel door, two discreet gentlewomen as witnesses, and they go to bed because that is what stops cousins talk. Then the penalties begin. If her late husband's heir persuades a court that she eloped and lived in adultery, Westminster too says she loses her dower, unless the old husband being dead, an awkward ask had taken her back. She can keep one thing, her paraphernalia, gowns and jewels, not part of the inheritance. Men write statutes, women keep wardrobes. When adultery rises in rank, verse rises to meet it. Troubadours kneel to ladies with rings. Romance makes fins amours of theft. Chroniclers embroider. The street hums a simpler tune and the sheriff writes a line. You can be fined in a manorial role for adulterium. You can be presented in borough court for keeping a lover in your house. You can be sued in royal court on your husband's complaint for trespass. Raptus of wife when the rival carried her off with force and arms. Force and arms may be a door and a smile. The writ has a stock phrase and lawyers love stock. What does canon do with noble adultery? It cannot unmake a marriage for it. It can grant a separation, a mensa et thorifrom, bed and board if a spouse proves cruelty or adultery. Property arrangements follow tempers cool. No new marriage is allowed while both live. If there is issue, the law clings hard to the presumption pater est quem nuptiae demonstrant, the father is the one marriage shows. A husband must prove the last weapon non-access, that he could not have been the father to shake a child's legitimacy. Behind page and plea, households play the old practical, a child is loved or not. If not, a generous corrody or a priory finds them a place and a name half remembered. There is a glamour that kills. Great houses practice courtly love, the way falconers practice letting a bird fly and return. It is theatre service, sighs favours at the tourney, verses pinned under a cushion. Cross from theatre into touch, and the stage collapses into timber. A lord may forgive his lady the poems that make the hall prettier. He will not forgive posterity carried on a smile. Some customs soften homicide in flagrante. Some juries soften faster for men than for women. A lady without brothers and with a lover without land discovers how hard a floor can be when the carpets are rolled up for justice. Household mechanics feed scandal. A steward keeps the keys and the books. He may keep the letters you meant to burn. A chamberer folds sheets and sees who's where when. A porter knows whose cap passed the wicket after curfew. You think poetry will keep your secret. It is a scullion with a memory who keeps it and sells it when pressed. When the matter breaks, it breaks into jurisdictions. The archdeacon for sin, the king's bench for riot, and raptus, the chancery for wardship, the exchequer. If the king smells a fine, there are tricks up here as below, but they wear velvet. If you are a ward determined to marry for yourself, you force the forum speak de praesenti before good witnesses in a place notorious, a chapel door on a feast evening, a garden walk where gentlewomen stroll, then go to bed in a house not controlled by your guardian. When the writs fly, your proctor waves consent and copula. The guardian waves tenure and trespass. Courts prefer order. They will craft a composition you keep. The husband, the guardian, takes damages. Bans are asked and fees paid. You have bought your love at a price that prints in the pipe rolls. If you are a widow, you sequence secure seisin of dower first. Take license if your fee speaks to the crown. Publish bans in a chapel you endow with a candle. Make friends of the escheator and the sheriff, who can turn malice into delay or speed. Keep a clean household, no night walking, no brawling, so that when your stepson calls you adulteress, you answer with defamation and cost him amercements instead of breath. The sheriff is the glamour's undertaker. He writes amercements for adulterers who are unfree. He executes writs for ravished wards. He summons juries for trespass of wife. He takes bails and main prizes when cousins promise to keep the peace. His role looks nothing like a romance, and everything like the price list at the back of a merchant's book. When a poet finishes a lay about a lady's eyes, the sheriff fines the harper for playing after curfew. None of this says kings and queens are immune, only that their cases become history rather than law. A queen with a favorite decorates chronicles. A great lord with a laundress decorates sermons. Either way, the reckoning is paid in land blood or time. The safer happinesses are ordinary ones under roofs that the world can ignore. Up here, privacy is a fiction and consent is a debt book. If you're looking for mercy, it lives in small clauses. A wife who eloped may recover dower if her husband takes her back. A husband who sues trespass for his ravished wife must say he received her again to keep his honor and his damages both. A ward who was carried truly by force finds every court for once on her side. A widow who keeps her paraphernalia and her temper often keeps her story, which can be better than land. We will not leave the stair yet. The next doors belong to words libels and lampoons, defamation and proof. Poems make heat, evidence makes verdicts. Watch how a ring, motto, a steward's tally, a midwife's date, and a song whispered at a screen become the rope or the bridge in a case where everyone talks and no one remembers the same day. By now you know that love in this century is half feeling, half filing. When the lane has already sung its verdict and the bakehouse has improved it, the only way back to daylight is a defamation suit not at the king's bench, unless you have magnates to offend, but in the archdeacon's or consistory court, where defamatio lives. It is the case you bring when a mouth has unstitched your life. The rule is blunt words matter in their wording. You cannot sue an insult that is merely rude. You sue the charge that would bring you to penance if true. Whore named plainly, adulterer, I had her behind the mill. She is not her husband's wife. He made a porch marriage with me first. These are actionable because they name a sin or a state the church punishes. The proctor has you recite the exact phrasing. He writes it into the libel. Remember libel. Here is the pleading spelling and all. The scribe's pen loves specificity, not on a night, but after Compline on the eve of St. Barnabas. Not in the street, but by St. Peter's style. Street justice has its own lawyers' ballads, and they are worse than beadles. A boy with a drum and a tune can spread an allegation faster than any citation. So ballads become evidence of famer public fame when you sue. Witnesses swear they heard the song with this burden, and the court asks the only question that matters: does it identify? A mill is nothing. Alice Miller is everything. Metaphor warms ale, it does not convict. But a refrain that rhymes a woman's name with a detail, a scar, a hat, a kinwill serve as well as prose. Often the scribe copies the words into the act book deadpan and the tune dies on the page like a moth. Then there are tokens, the trinketry of love turned into exhibits. A posy ring with monquer entier within the hoop. A girdle clasp recognized by the seamstress who sold it. A brooch. The goldsmith can swear he made and sold to the man, now denying he ever spoke to the woman wearing it. Courts prefer minutes to meanings. When did you give it? Where in whose sight a ring proves much or little depending on sequence. Given after present words at a porch, it buttresses a marriage. Given in the stews, it is a coin with manners. A letter can be worse, the scrivener who wrote it may be fetched to say he formed the words, I take you at the client's request. The hand is not proved like in a modern tale. Authorship is proved by the man whose fingers sold the ink. Lovers learn the traps. The first is the oath ex officio, the book in your hand, and a fishing net of questions in the judges. You do not get to refuse the sea. You get to insist on articles' positions in writing, so you may answer true or not true without volunteering a meadow of confession. Your proctor recites the old courtesy, my client is ready to answer to things articulated. If the promoter presses, your proctor pleads that no fama sufficient exists to warrant rummaging in every cupboard of your life. A bold commissary will rummage anyway. Your safety then is short answers, and the stubborn grammar of the event you wish to prove, de praesenti, present words, witnesses of good fame cohabitation after. The second trap is the love song as confession. Boys are fools, men worse. The clerk who rhymed, I took her at the stile that night, thinks metaphor hides him. The promoter copies the line and reads it under oath. The judge asks, did you sing this? If he answers yes, and cannot prove it was poetry without act, he has half sworn his own guilt. There are cases where the court sets penance on ballad makers, not for melody but for false witness with a tune. If the song is true, penance bites for the deed. If false penance bites for the defamation. The third trap is the token planted. A rival slips a ring into a girl's chest and swears he gave it in a porch. A letter is found in a psalter by a zealot cousin. Here proof turns from objects to people. Who saw the giving? What hour? Did the giver have a reason to write? The court loves 2 witnesses of good fame, more than 1 tearful human and 10 trinkets. A midwife's date quickening at Candlemas can anchor a chain that makes a planted ring look like amateur theatre. Defamation suits often travel with matrimonial causes in tandem, like 2 dogs pulling different ways. Geoffrey sues Thomas for defamation. He says, I boast of porch words I never spoke, while Thomas sues Geoffrey for defamation. He says he married Alice first. The commissary hates circles. He cracks them with publication or refuses it. If depositions are published, both sides read the witnesses and sharpen their interrogatories. If not, the judge keeps them locked to prevent rehearsed harmony. In either case, pace yourself. Fees multiply like mice. You will pay for the libel, for answers, for the scribe, for notaries' signs, for copies of acts, if you have sense enough to keep them, for proctors, who measure their days by your fear. The street has judgments, the court has remedies. Best outcome you prove the slander, and the judge orders amende, honourable in local style your enemy to stand bareheaded at the church door, candle in hand, saying the set words, I lied. Alice is an honest woman. He pays your expenses, feeds a poor box, and is warned off with a tale of penance. Middle outcome. The court finds mutual heat, compels both to silence under pain, and orders a composition of costs that feels like robbing Peter to pay Peter. Worse, the court decides the words were fama, vera true, fameor, too general to sustain suit, and sends everyone home poorer and angrier with the sermon stapled to the wound. Evidence at this date obeys a few cold canons. 2 good witnesses beat 10 rumors. Women can and do testify in moral courts. Infamous folk perjurers, boards condemned men under excommunication are challenged and sometimes excluded. Compurgation oath helpers still walks about in some dioceses, friends who swear to your credibility rather than your facts. Juries belong to other benches. Here the judge weighs. Phrases you will learn to hate. Dicit de auditue says from hearing. Pharma laborat reputation suffers but is not proof. You can fight on paper even when the lane has judged you. There are dilatory exceptions. The court lacks jurisdiction. My client is ill. Harvest sometimes allowed. Peremptory exceptions. The libel is bad. The words alleged are not punishable. Recusations. This judge is my enemy's patron. There is the juramentum calumnia, your oath that you bring your cause without malice, a formality that bites if you later boast otherwise at the alabench. There are schedules of interrogatories you send to trip the other side's witnesses. Were you within 6 feet? Had you drunk? Have you a quarrel with the plaintiff? There is publication to beg or resist. There is the quiet art of the compromise set out by proctors in Latin that says everyone is tired and wants supper. Tokens and songs do not go away when the court sleeps. A posy ring returns to a finger and tells a truer tale than any act book. A lampoon lingers in mouths regardless of recantation. So you add the theatre of vindication to the paper. You solemnize a porch marriage with banns and blessing, so the parish must now call you man and wife in the present tense. You visit the neighbor you sued and leave a heel of bread and a stick of wood on the step, which is how a street agrees to forget. You teach your friends to say, ask the court book, and your enemies to tire of being told it exists. One more caution. Lovers think truth wins. Courts think proof wins. Truth ungirded by minutes dies like a tune with no refrain. Proof dressed in time's, places, hands and witnesses survives the winter. Put your love into that clothing when scandal comes, and you will keep more of it than poetry could save.